Hello everybody, my name is Rabbi Yaron Zvi. Today I want to talk to you about the book of Tanya. Before we begin, we're going to listen to a bracha, a blessing that Rabbi Manis Friedman gave us. I opened the yeshiva a while ago in Ramat Gan, Israel, and I'm teaching over there the book of Tanya and more Hasidus teachings. And one of the things that we did after opening the yeshiva is to print the book of Tanya on Yud Bet Tammuz. We made a big event and we printed the Tanya. And I want to hear with you the blessings that we got from Rabbi Manis Friedman for opening the yeshiva and the Tanya printing. Then I'll explain about the importance of learning Tanya and what is the Tanya. And afterwards, we're going to hear an explanation from Rabbi Manis that participated in the Tanya printing event that we did by explaining the meaning of printing Tanya. So at the end of the video, before the end of the video, we're going to hear a very interesting explanation by Rabbi Manis regarding what it means to print the Tanya. So stay with us and stay tuned. And we're going to talk about a very interesting and important subject. And first, as we said, we're going to listen to the bracha, to the blessings of Rabbi Manis. Please, Rabbi Manis.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. Rabbi Yaron Zvi, mazel tov for the new yeshiva, Tomchet Mimim, Ramat Gan. Mazel tov for the printing of the Tanya, and Baruch Hashem for your recovery, the medical miracle. You should always have only good news, and if it has to be miraculous, let it be miraculous. A miracle every now and then is perfectly natural and normal. So the schus of starting a yeshiva, and the schus of printing the Tanya, and the schus of learning the Tanya, and the schus of teaching the Tanya, and all of your students will be teachers themselves, neres loha'ir. So all of those schusim should bring you only mazel and hatzlacha, far greater than you imagined, far greater than you can expect, because you have the koyach of the Alter Rebbe and all the Rebbeim, and printing the Tanya is the Rebbe's project, so you have the Rebbe's blessings and the Rebbe's koyach. With that, you should be able to accomplish amazing, great things. Mazel tov.
So the book of Tanya was written by the Alter Rebbe. The Alter means the old Rebbe in Yiddish. And we're talking about Rabbi Shneior Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Hasidut Chabad, Hasidus Chabad. He was a student of the Magid of Mezrich, which was a student of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the General Hasidus. And the Alter Rebbe wrote the book of Tanya for 20 years. 20 years is writing this book, and not because it takes 20 years to write a book, but because this book is not a regular book. This is a very unique and special book, even within the holy books, field, because the Alter Rebbe, we're going to quote from the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. He said about the Tanya, the book of Tanya, he said, I don't understand how the Alter Rebbe managed to take such a great and divine Hashem, God, and put it in such a small book. This is the words of one of the Talmidim, one of the students of the Magid of Mezrich, And this is how he describes what is the book of Tanya. He says this is godliness. This is taking Hashem and putting him in a book. Of course, we cannot put Hashem in a book. Hashem is infinite. But this book has a lot of infinite godly light within him. It's not, there is a reason why it took 20 years, you know. It says that to write a single word in the book of Tanya, whether to write it with a specific letter, the letter of Vav in Hebrew, the Alter Rebbe thought about this for a few weeks and went through the whole book in his head to decide whether he should write a certain word with a certain letter or not. So this is how important and accurate every word and every letter within this book, the book of Tanya. So we're going to explain a little bit what is the book of Tanya, why it's so important to learn it. And finally, as we said, Rabbi Manis Friedman is going to explain to us about the meaning of printing the Tanya. The book of Tanya was translated to 11 languages, and it was printed in more than 8,000 locations around the world. Even during wars, even in dangerous countries, it was printed. And there is a special production that you do when you want to print a Tanya. There was a way how to do it. We have instructions from the Rebbe. It's the Rebbe's project to print the Tanya in different locations. It has a lot of spiritual meaning. That's why when we opened the yeshiva, one of the first things that we did is to print the Tanya, to make a big event and print the Tanya within the walls of the yeshiva. So the book of Tanya, let's talk a little bit about this book. Another student of the Magid of Mezrich, Rabbi Zushe of Anipoli, he said that with the Tanya book, Israel would go to accept Mashiach, to greet Mashiach. So this book really is a preparation for the true and complete redemption. Within the Tanya book, the Alter Rebbe gives us like a manual for the soul. He explains to us the way the soul is built, the different strengths that we have, how, from what we are complex, how are we built spiritually, mentally, what resources do we have, what treasures do we have inside us, and it's available for us to use if only we'll make the right observant, the right attitude to expose what's existing within us and start using it. Is giving us a lot of treasures, a lot of information, spiritual information about us that it was never exposed in the way that the Alter Rebbe did when he gave us the book of Tanya. In the introduction to the Tanya, to the first part of the Tanya, there are 5 parts to this book. The Alter Rebbe says that within this book, any Jew who is going to learn this book at any time, the Alter Rebbe says, I know him, and I wrote all the answers for all the questions that he have within this book. Alter Rebbe says this few hundred years ago. I know every Jew that's going to learn the book, and there is answers to any questions that he has within this book. And also he explains that there are different types of books to guide, and in the field of holy books, the Jewish holy books, right? There's different attitudes within books. Some books are dependent on your perception, your ability to understand, your mind. Some books are more spiritual and addresses everybody, but still not everybody needs the same, medication, as we can call it, the cure that the Tanya provides. And then the Alter Rebbe says, this book is not like any other book. This book is like meeting me. It's like a meeting with me. And when people went to meet the Alter Rebbe is a complete tzaddik, a complete righteous person. He doesn't have any ego. He's transparent. You can see Hashem through this person, right? You can see God through him, because he doesn't have a reality of his own. All his reality is godliness. And this person, the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach says that he and all the rest of the leaders of Hasidus Chabad are new souls in the world. What does it mean to be a new soul? So it explains that new soul means a soul that wasn't within the first man when he made the sin. So the Alter Rebbe, it explains in Kabbalah and Hasidus that there were souls that saw that the first man is going to sin, is going to eat from the forbidden tree, and they didn't want to participate in that, so they went out of him, they went above. They didn't want to be a part of this sin. So this means that's the meaning of a new soul. So the Alter Rebbe is a new soul, a soul that was not participating in the first sin. So what does it mean? It means that the Alter Rebbe is above, his soul is above all the result that came from eating from the forbidden tree, going down into a world of ego, a world of weaknesses, a world of the opposite of good. And to fix that, we needed many, many years of working to fix what happened in the first sin of the first man. And one of the treasures that we have, the presents that we got, is that the Alter Rebbe wrote a book, the book of Tanya, and within this book he explains to us, he gives us all the cures for all the spiritual disease that we might experience in this world, in this time, the time of the exile, and preparing us to the redemption. So another thing that we need to know about the book of Tanya is that when the Maggid of Mezrich, the teacher of the Alter Rebbe, spread Hasidus, one of the richest people that were existing at that time, one of the tzaddikim, he didn't like the way that he's spreading Hasidus, because a paper of holy scriptures of Hasidus was blown in the wind and landed in some not so holy place, and he didn't like it. So he was makpid on the Alter Rebbe. He looked at it in a negative way, not on the Alter Rebbe, on the Maggid of Mezrich, the teacher of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe told him a story, and by this story he cancelled his anger about the Maggid of Mezrich. And the story was that he said there was a king, and the king has a son, and the son of the king was very sick. And many doctors tried to cure him, and nobody found the cureness, until one doctor came and he said the only thing that can help him is that in the crown of the king there is a special stone. If you take it and you smash it until it becomes a powder, and the son is going to drink from that, this will cure him. And they did it, and he was cured. And the Alter Rebbe explained to this person who was very angry of the Maggid of Mezrich. He told him, this is the status now. The generation is very weak spiritually, and we have to spend all the treasures, even the highest revelations of godliness, to save this generation from this status. So therefore, we're spreading Hasidus in a way that you saw what happened. Even a paper of Hasidus was blown in the wind and reached an unholy place. So this tzaddik, this person was angry of the Maggid of Mezrich, said, okay, so if I get what you're saying, I accept, and I take off my objection to the Maggid of Mezrich, and it's okay. But when the Alter Rebbe is writing the book of Tanya and spreading Tanya, suddenly we see there is a new problem. There was the Alter Rebbe had to go into jail because people complained at him, people that were against Hasidus and against the Tanya and against the Alter Rebbe spread different news, different fake news about him, that he's against the government and so on. And then he went to jail, and he was in jail 53 days, exactly the number of the chapters of the first part of the Tanya, Likutei Amarim. So the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach says, if the Alter Rebbe could cancel the anger of this tzaddik that was angry of the Maggid of Mezrich, how come suddenly there is a different problem that happens to the Alter Rebbe? right? The Alter Rebbe is also spreading Hasidus. Why there is a different problem? Because if there is such a problem that somebody is a holy person like the tzaddik that was angry of the Magid of Mizrich, it doesn't happen for nothing. There's a reason. There's a godly reason for that. So the Rebbe says why there is an objection to the Alter Rebbe, objection in the sky, that was translated into objection in the world, in a shape of taking the Alter Rebbe to under arrest with the false accusations. So the Rebbe says because the Magid of Mizrich, his intention by spreading Hasidus was to waken the generation from its weakness. The generation was very weak spiritually. So the Alter Rebbe fixed it when he said that story to this person. But now the Alter Rebbe has a different goal, a different target here. The Alter Rebbe wants to bring the Geula, to bring the true and complete redemption. And for that, a new objection arose in the sky, and therefore the Alter Rebbe had to go to jail, and so on. So we understand from that the book of Tanya is not just a manual of the soul, it's a preparation for the true and complete redemption, which is supposed to happen in our generation. We are the seventh generation from the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, the Rebbe King Mashiach, who is the president of this generation, the Nasi Ador, the Rabbi's initials for Rosh Bnei Israel, the head of Israel, he said that this is the last generation of exile and the first generation of redemption. And the preparation to that started by the book of Tanya, by the founder of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe. So we are 7 generations after the Alter Rebbe created the Tanya and printed the Tanya, decided to print the Tanya. At the beginning he didn't print it, but people tried to manipulate and change what he wrote, so he had to print it, take it into a printing house. And today we see that a lot of Jews, not just Chabad, a lot of Jews learn Tanya daily in Hebrew, in English. As we said, it was translated to 11 languages, and it was printed in more than 8,000 locations around the world. Some of them were also dangerous, as we said. And this is a preparation of us to the true and complete redemption. So wherever you are, for sure there is a Tanya lesson. I spread Tanya online. I have a lesson in Hebrew. To date reaches 18 countries, thousands of Jews. People can join to this lesson if they want. The WhatsApp number is 054-38-17738. Now it's in Hebrew. Maybe it's going to be in English also. Depends. Anyway, this is in general what is the book of Tanya. Of course, I told you there's 5 sections to the book, and everything is explained in the Tanya. There are answers to any question that a Jew might have. Why the world was created, how it's created, not just was created, but constantly being created by Hashem, as the Alter Rebbe explains. What's the purpose? What's the structure of our soul? How do we service Hashem with the Ahava v'Yira, love and fear towards Hashem, and different problems that might occur when we're servicing Hashem, like being unhappy and so on. And the Alter Rebbe really touches every subject in Judaism, in the soul structure, in the servicing Hashem, and he explains and gives us a divine manual that was never given before, and this is all a preparation to the true and complete redemption. So now we're going to listen to Rabbi Manis Friedman, who participate, as we said, in the Tanya printing event that we did in Ramat Gan on Yud Bet Tammuz, and he's going to say some words about the meaning of printing the book of Tanya. So please, let's hear Rabbi Manis, and God bless, and be in touch, and bracha v'atzlacha, blessings and success.
When America landed its spacecraft on the moon, and an American stepped out onto the moon, they planted an American flag, meaning they're claiming that maybe the whole moon, but it's certainly that part of the moon that is now claimed by America, United States of America. God told Avraham, come to the land of Canaan, but walk the length and breadth of it. And wherever you walk, it will become yours. Which means it will change from the land of Canaan to the Holy Land of Israel. When the Rebbe started the project of printing Tanyas in every city, in every village, in every place where a Jew lives, it was like planting a flag or walking the borders. It was staking a claim. This city, this town, this village is now dedicated to godliness, dedicated to holiness. Because there's a Tanya printed with the name of the city on the front page. You're adding your city to the long list, thousands of places, so that should somebody unholy claim that it's theirs, that the city belongs to them, and that it is a place of unholiness and ungodliness, the Tanya was already there, already claimed the place for holiness. And you can't take it back. So, the purpose is very noble. It's part of the process of making every land a holy land. And certainly one of the ways of making a place holy is by producing its own Torah book. But why the Tanya? Now you could be very practical about it and say, well, what else could they? The entire Chumash? That's a lot of work, a lot of paper, a lot of printing. Tanya is a small book, much more doable. And you can make hundreds of copies and give them away. That would be a very practical consideration. But then again, could have printed Pirkei Avos, even shorter, or Tehillim. Why Tanya? In fact, what is Tanya? We know that before the coming of Mashiach, certain unholy energies, forces, will finally become holy. And not until then. Like when the Jews came into Israel the first time, there were 7 nations that were displaced, removed from the land, in order for it to become the Holy Land. 7 nations, each one represented an emotion, but an evil form of that emotion. It's the 7 attributes that we counted, the 7 weeks of the Sphira. Chesed, Gevurah. So there was one nation among the 7 They exemplified embodied kindness, but it was unholy kindness, unholy love. Then there was a nation that exemplified and embodied compassion, but all the wrong compassion. Compassion for the wrong people. And then there were the nations that represented Gvura, strong judgment, but unholy judgment, and so on throughout the seven. That's what made the land of Israel holy. That all the attributes that are emotion should be holy. Now the rest of the world needs to become a holy land. What's left that is preventing the rest of the world from also being holy? The three mental, intelligent functions, Chachma, Bina, and Das. In other words, knowledge, understanding, wisdom is still very secular and very unholy. Except for the knowledge of Torah. So before Mashiach comes, which means now in our time, human knowledge, secular knowledge, has to be replaced with godly knowledge. In fact, Rambam, 800 years ago, set it down as the first mitzvah, the foundation of all wisdom, the pillar of all knowledge, is to get to know God. God should be understood, not only believed in, not only obeyed, but understood, known. We have to get to know God and godliness. We have to understand it as well and as clearly and as thoroughly as we understand anything physical. Getting to know God. The mitzvah of Yedias Hashem. In the Torah, which book focuses directly on the knowledge of God? The Tanya. At least it was the first. And when the Tanya came out, the holy Berditchever, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, said, marveling at the book, he said, how do you put such a huge God into such a small book? Of course, what he meant to say was not, he wasn't remarking about the size of the print. Small book. What he meant was, how do you fit an infinite God into human understanding? Any book is way too small to explain God. But the Tanya managed to bring the understanding of God down to where every human being can comprehend it. So this mitzvah of Yedias Hashem, which is crucial for making the rest of the world holy, so that the whole world becomes a holy land, This comes about when we get to understand God in such a way that we can explain it to the rest of the world, and that every human being with even minimum understanding can actually grasp, understand, and get to know God. That's the Tanya. Of course, if you add the commentaries, the Rebbe's insight into the Tanya, makes it even more understandable. So mazel tov on this fantastic achievement and project. Now your city has been claimed for God and for holiness and for goodness. Evil cannot control it anymore. And the people of the city can actually enjoy the benefits of learning their own Tanya and getting to really know God. Because the bottom line, of course, is that the knowledge of God should lead to the love of God. How can you love God? Only if you get to know Him. Something you don't know is impossible to love. You can obey, you can believe without knowing. People obeyed the king, never saw the king. But love? To know Him is to love Him. You have to come with the knowledge first. And when you get to know Him, then He is close enough and real enough in your mind that your heart can get excited. And that's called love. So learn your Tanya, study it well, know that you can understand it because the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, made himself understandable in his writing, worked very hard at it to make sure that anyone who reads it seriously will understand. So Hatzlacha Rabbah, enjoy the learning, spread the learning, share the learning, and beyond the printing of the Tanya, make your city a Tanya city, a city with the knowledge of God. Hatzlacha.